Hey, you. On this episode of the Impactful Life podcast, I'm joined by special guest Chelsea Wallace. Hey, you, and welcome back to another episode of the new show. I'm thrilled today. I'm joined by a really special guest, Chelsea Wallace, who's also known as the Launch Copy Coach. And she is phenomenal. I found Chelsea on Instagram, I want to say probably back in the fall of last year, and just started following what she was talking about because she talks so openly about launching and launch strategies and the things that go around that. But what she really focuses on is on how to do it without burning out, and getting really clear and honest about building a launch plan and launching a businesses and offers and things that you're putting out into the world without running yourself into the ground doing it. So when I had the chance to invite her to the conference that we had earlier this year, I was thrilled when she said yes, and then equally thrilled when I asked her if she would come on the podcast that she said yes to that as well. So today we had a really phenomenal conversation. I was ending it and I was just like, this is awesome. This is a great conversation. We got deep into talking about how to care for yourself. We got deep into understanding how to not do things the way everybody else does them just because you're told to do it that way. We got deep into what to do when things go wrong with your launching, and when things go wrong in your business, and when you just don't think you can keep going anymore as an entrepreneur. And she shares a lot of wisdom and a lot of gold and a lot of honesty in this episode. And I really hope you enjoy it as much as I did. So here we go. Chelsea, I'm so excited that you're joining me today. And I'm thrilled. Like, I know we've had a lot of chances to talk to each other behind the scenes about things, and you've also spoken at the conference, but having you on the podcast today is just thrilling. So thank you so much for being here.
Of course, Jan. Thank you so much for having me. When you asked, I was like, yes, please. Thank you. So I'm glad that we're getting this chance to talk, and, like opening up your platform to me, I never take that lightly. So thank you. Hey, everybody. Thank you for joining. Thank you for listening and watching. And we're going to make it a good one for you.
We will. So some of my audience know you because they've heard you speak at the conference, and then a lot of people too who might be new. Let's go ahead and introduce yourself, and then people will understand why I adore you as much as I do. So
Will do. I don't know if the introduction will make you love me as much, but
you will.
We'll try.
Throughout the podcast, it'll happen. So yes.
So I am Chelsea, the Launch Copy Coach, also known as a Launch Burnout Coach. And the work that I do is really helping coaches in particular, but entrepreneurs in general, to launch their different offers, programs, courses, digital products in a way that they're able to remain profitable, right? But they're not killing themselves to do it. They're not putting their lives on pause. They're not burning themselves out. They're not trading in their well-being for revenue and profit, because I believe you get to have both. And I believe that you don't have to trade off one for the other. And so a lot of the ways that I do that and ways that I talk about that, you'll hear me use the word synergy a lot. You'll hear me talk a lot about really being conscious of your energy, being conscious of where you are at and what you're capable of doing. So hustle is not a word in my vocabulary. I'm not going to be the one to tell you to, just like Jen and I were talking about this, like just a couple seconds before we hopped on here. And she said it, and I agree. I'm not going to be the one to tell you to just lean in and work harder. Yeah. That's not who I'm going to be. I'm not going to be the one to tell you to stay up at all hours of the night or pull an all-nighter trying to get whatever it is that you're trying to get out. I'm not going to be that person. So that's kind of what I believe. That's how I run my business. That's how I help my clients run their businesses and their launches. And that's what I'm here to talk about today.
Awesome. So now people will understand clearly, because we talk very much the same language as well. Because with my students, I talk about it all the time, right? Build it on your own terms, do things on your own terms, and don't pay attention to all of the things that are on the side. And we'll get into that more, I know, as we want to kind of go through it. But I wanted to know too, because one of the things, like, I know a little bit about your backstory and kind of where you came from, but how did you go from how it brought you here? Like, what was the thing that not just like sparked you to want to start your own business, but also like to do this specific thing? Because you do talk
Yeah.
about things that people don't talk about. Like, it's a very
Right.
different. Everyone's like, just launch, 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 and you're like, no, let's think this over again. Yeah, yeah.
Let's think about this. Yeah. So, really quickly, I'll go over the backstory and then kind of explain how I got here. So, Jan, I think you know this. My degree is actually in biology. I was never a marketer, but kind of fell into this because I'm Jamaican, living and working in Jamaica now, but I went to the States for college. And so I came back home and was like, okay, gotta find something to do. Can't just sit around on my parents' couch. So fell into this whole digital world, making money online, remote working, that sort of thing. Started in social media, which I think a ton of us do, because that's really like the door open. That's like the first step in the door, is like social media content writing. And then from there, one of my coaches, my business coaches, was actually a copywriter.
Mm.
And so I learned a whole lot from her around messaging, positioning, languaging around sales, and how you communicate in order to help people make a buying decision. And at the time that she was coaching me, she was also launching a couple different programs. And so it just so happened that we built a really great relationship. I was able to get in the behind the scenes of her business and actually support her through a couple different launches that she had. One that did exceptionally well, and like she nailed it. It was a group program with like she booked out $35,000 in a couple of weeks. It was crazy.
Wow.
And then the other one, which was interestingly launching the same program, but it flopped for the first 2 weeks. So we kind of had to like pivot really, really quickly. And I learned a whole lot on my feet at that time, because I was the one who was like, okay, this isn't working the way we planned. Let's try this strategy. Let's try some storytelling. Let's try to shift the messaging a little bit and humanize it and make it a bit more personal. Mm-hmm. Because what worked for the first launch was, kind of like what we were talking about the money, talking about, this is how I made 6 figures. This is how I retired my husband with this income. Like a lot around money and strategy was the first launch messaging, but it wasn't working this time. So a lot of what we did was humanize her, tell her story a bit more. And it was so crazy to watch, because all of the people who said yes to the program, I could go back into her Facebook group and look at their engagement on the posts and be like, they were the ones who were responding to her story and then eventually booking into the program.
Right.
So I learned a lot about launching from those 2 experiences, and kind of from there moved into doing a lot around launching. Had a couple opportunities to work with agencies and other business development companies were my clients, and really got to see behind the scenes of some of the biggest launches in the industry. I'm talking people like Marie Forleo, Amy Porterfield, Alex Sharfin. The agency that I was working with at the time, those were their clients.
Right.
And so I was doing a lot of the project management, the client communication, the funnel building. I was on that side of things. So kind of getting to see the nitty gritty of how launches actually work. Mm-hmm. And just building on that foundation that I had from working with my previous coach. And so I learned what it takes to launch and how much it takes from you. And it was one of those things where we just kind of take it for granted that that's the way it is in this space. And, burnout is a part of the game. Exhaustion is just how it works. This is just what we have to do to get profit in the door. And that's what I saw over and over and over again. I saw that from all of those clients in the agency, from all of even my clients that I worked with afterwards. I just saw that same thing. Mm-hmm. And I was always uncomfortable with it, but it's one of those things where you get uncomfortable and you just kind of ignore it.
I know about that. Yes.
I know Jan knows exactly what I'm talking about. And some of you who are listening probably do as well, right? And then 2020 happened. And I was like, yeah, no, we can't keep doing this, because here's the thing. We forget that we have so many inputs coming at us and so many things that require and demand our attention and our energy. We have family, we have friends, some of us had kids, some of us have like day jobs that we're still working at. We have side projects, nonprofits, different social causes that we're supporting or giving to or participating in. Some of us have like church. Listen, all of the things, right?
Yes.
And then 2020 happened and it was like, you still have to do all the things and you're locked in your house. You can't have fun and the world is blowing up because you're facing all of your biases, all of the ish that comes with, you know, being human in this world. Capitalism, racism, all the isms
Yep.
going down, right?
Yep.
And so it was a moment of, we can't launch the way we've been doing this. Like, this isn't gonna work, because my clients were literally up to here. They weren't gonna be able to sustain that kind of thing. Like, they would probably have quit a quarter way into the launch. Like, it just wouldn't have worked. And so I really I took some time away from like social media. Actually, I hadn't been on social media for probably the entire last half of 2020.
Yeah.
And really reworked my strategies that I was using and recommending to clients to launch, and landed on this whole idea of really being conscious of your capacity and how you're spending yourself, like how you're spending your energy, so that anything that you do, whether it's launching or business, you're able to do it without compromising your well-being. So long story short, that's who I am. That's how I got here.
It's a good story though. And I think like, there's like so many different things I can go off on that. But one of the pieces I think was, I remember you and I touching base when in my last launch, and I was just going into the launch, and it was just like an innocent, like, you know, hey, how are you doing? And you asked me, how are you doing? And I was like, I'm fine. And you were like, are you really? And I was like, yes.
Yeah,
and just like whoosh.
Yeah.
And it was just like that overwhelm of being like, oh my gosh, here's somebody who actually is going to listen to what I'm feeling right now, of being like, I don't want to launch like this anymore. I don't like this feeling. And I know you touched on it a bit, but why is it so important to you to be addressing burnout? Like, why is that your message that you're bringing to the world, is you don't need to do this anymore this way?
Yeah. I think it's because I've just seen too many clients do it, and I've been a part of the problem. You know, I have watched clients get sick. Like, literally, they decide to launch and they get sick a week later. They haven't even started planning anything yet. Their body just responds to the idea that they're gonna launch. Like that coach that I was initially telling you about, she got sick after we closed that launch. And yes, it was profitable. Like we closed at, I think, 32K, but she got sick immediately after that. And she had to postpone the start of the program for like a solid 2 weeks. And then even when we started, you could see she was still getting over it. She had a chronic cough, I think, for the entire 3 months of the program.
Yeah.
And for like chronic cough, chronic fatigue, a chronic headache that would go and come the entire 3 months after that launch. Like that, why? I think I just got up to here with that kind, and she wasn't the only one. That was early on in my exposure to launching, but I've had clients since then who have told me they hate launching, and that every time they launch, they get sick, and that they repeatedly end up in hospital. I'm like, yeah, okay, no, we can't. No. So I think I had heard just too many stories like that for me to keep doing things the way that I was, because I realized I am a part of the problem. And the way that I am coaching my clients to launch their programs is not working. I mean, it's working if you look at the profit statement, right? But it's not working because they are literally killing themselves to make it happen. Yeah. And I think something that I began to work out much later on, even after I made this decision, was realizing that when you do things that way, you actually stall your momentum. Like any kind of momentum that you're building in your business, you kill it whenever you get sick, because you can't show up if you're sick, right? And so that's not to say that like we'll never get sick. Hello, we're human, right? But like if you can prevent that, right? And if you can go at a pace that makes sense for you, so you know that you won't cause yourself to become ill or cause yourself to become so exhausted that you literally can barely get out of bed, then let's not do it. Like, let's choose that way where we don't feel like that, you know? And I also, in realizing that you're stalling that momentum, I realized that we actually jeopardize our ability to show up and make impact. Because if we're really talking about we've been transformed by whatever process it is that we went through, and we now want to share that with the world, right? We're talking impact here. And if you are sick, if you are exhausted, you diminish your capacity to show up and impact anybody.
Yep.
And if we're talking impact and long term, if we're talking legacy, we're literally threatening that and jeopardizing that. And it was just one of those things where I realized, yeah, we can't afford to keep doing this way. It's actually too expensive. It's too expensive to continue to like I think I said this in a post recently, myself and my clients are deciding that that's a price that we don't want to pay.
Yeah, that's powerful. Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's true, right? Like I personally feel, and I'll just go out there and I'm going to say it because I tend to say things I want to say. So I'm saying it. One of the things for me, so coming from a very traditional market space into the online space that I have struggled with the entire time being here, is the not always very honest approach to things that people are. It's very easy to look at an Instagram post and think that's true if you don't come from a background of understanding that that's actually a load of BS. And
listen.
Yeah, right. So, and there is this idea of, hey, buy my product. I did $100,000 in 6 months or 6 weeks or insert number, or look at my life now. I'm trailing down a beach and living in, this luxury life. And you can do it too if you buy my low price product of only $2.99.
Right. Listen, $27. Not even, I'm looking at $27. Or better yet, $2.99.
Yeah, exactly. I'll make you a millionaire for $2.99. Yeah. Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. So, and I feel that that's what a lot of the reasons why the things have happened in this industry or continue to happen is it's marketers marketing is what it comes down to, and marketing a lot to insecurities, especially I think when we market to women, when that there is that belief of leaning into, let's market to what scares them, and we'll make all of those uncomfortable feelings come up, and then we'll sell. But I feel like it's the same thing in speaking as someone who's launching now, again, like, of going through learning what a launch is like in the online space versus launching in traditional space. It's remarkably different.
Yeah, it is.
But again, of that, what the gurus say, right? Of the launch and launch and launch and launch and have like 40 different triggers and all of these different funnels running, and upsells and downsells and left sells and right sells. And at the end of it, you're kind of just walking around like, I was like, this feels wrong. I don't like this. This is not the way I want to sell. And that's why I love that you always give permission to be like, exactly what you said there. It's like, we're not saying this isn't right for us. We're not going to do this.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's crazy, Jen, because we come into the online space among one of the reasons being that we want freedom. We want to be able to be ourselves and do what feels right for us and not have to box ourselves into like 4 corners, right? And then we get into a situation where, oh, wait, guess what? You're boxed into 4 corners. You're told this is the only way to do it. And if you don't do it this way, you don't actually want to grow. You're not ready to run your business. Like, listen, as a copywriter, I have been trained to talk to people like that.
Yeah.
How disrespectful and completely out of order can you be to actually look at somebody and tell them that because they didn't buy your product, they don't want to grow in their business? Like, whoa.
Yeah.
Really?
Yep.
We end up walking straight into the trap, and we're now boxed into these four corners of like, this is the way you have to do it. This is the way you have to sell. This is the way you have to talk to people. And it takes so much from us. I mean, even if you are not sick, you're not exhausted, you're not burnt out, that feeling of sleaze and discomfort, that feeling of this isn't right for me. This isn't actually the way that I am. This is not what I believe in. This is not how I want to show up. Mm-hmm. And just like shoving it down. Like that does something to a person, you know? And it cripples your ability to just show up in your business because you don't like the way you're showing up.
Yeah.
And so of course you might end up in a situation where you're not sharing your lead magnet, you're not selling your course, like you're not proud of it. You don't want to. Yeah. That's why.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. Like I'm actually like reliving things in my head as you're talking, and I'm like, oh yes, I remember that someone said that to me once, and oh yes, and that's why, and that's why I bought that into that, and then I was like, that's why I never finished it because I didn't sit right, and it is true that we tend to lean into that idea that there's only one right way to do business, and there's not. There's millions of different ways to do business, and it's the same I teach with my students because so many of them are starting businesses with children. All of them just did this through a pandemic, like every single one of them. And they all deserve medals and champagne and roses for doing that, I think, daily.
Kids in the house in a pandemic, you win.
Yep.
Okay. If you are alive right now, you win.
Yeah.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Children.
Yeah. I know. But again, growing business should be done in a way that does feel right to you. And there's nothing wrong with the slow build. And I think we've become this hustle culture, like you said, that earlier of, the only success only means success if you do it in 6 months. Like you have to hit 6 figures in 6 months. And people sharing Stripe accounts and like, look at my Stripe account, number grow. Oh, please tell me that drives you.
Can we just like stop with the Stripe notifications, please? I get it.
Yeah.
You make money. Thank you.
Yeah, I know. I echo that one too, because I'm always like, let's back up and look at what the actual date is on the start of that account and how many things you did to get to that number. Yeah, that was not overnight. Yeah. But
and the thing is too, they don't like that Stripe account doesn't show you the expenses, darling.
No.
It doesn't show you how many fees Stripe took out to process those transactions. It doesn't show you how many team members they have to be paying. Yep. It's not showing you the real ish. Yeah. And like you were saying before, Jan, it's really easy for somebody to just make a post on Instagram. We see it, we think they're living the glam life. Mm-hmm. And I think it's just a trained response because listen, I fall prey to it too still to this day. Like this morning, looking at somebody's post and be like, oh my gosh, she is the ish. And then I'm like, Chelsea, highlight reel, darling. You don't know their life. You don't know their ish. Mm-hmm. Like roll it back. Yeah. This is not the real thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. But I think it's a trained response where like the dopamine just fires off in our brain and we just start to think that is the definition of success when we forget that we get to define what that is for ourselves.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's like I was talking to Jan just about my launch that I'm just completing right now. And I didn't even have a sales goal, yo. And I'm a launch strategist and launch coach. This is what I do. But I knew conditions going in, my capacity was not one where I was going to be able to like have all these high dollar expectations and meet it. Because quite frankly, my audience capacity is not at a place that would support those sales goals. So I'm not gonna like expend all of this energy and push and hustle to create money that I know I don't actually have capacity for yet. Yeah. I'm gonna do the groundwork, make it a slow build, and actually create my own version of success in a way that I want to experience it.
Yeah, and that's for me, I think that's the most empowering thing you can do. Like when I hear that, you make me feel empowered. I'm like, I can do that too. No, I can do that. I don't have to look and be like someone like, oh, well, you didn't quite hit your mark,
Right.
or saying, well, I was close, instead of saying and looking at it like I have this amazing ability to do what I love. People are paying me to be part of it.
Yes.
If it's one or if it's 100, it doesn't matter. It's still
Right.
there. It
Mm-hmm.
means the same thing.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah.
yeah. What do
Yeah.
you find that's like the mistakes are pretty common. Like I think that we all tend to make some really similar ones. Like I see it in my space all the time because I talk about it. Starting a business without a plan, winging it, like not actually knowing who your ideal customer is. Like I have my solids. I see them all the time. And I can look at someone's Instagram and I can be like, I know you don't know who you're talking to. And I know you don't know what your problem is, but I'm
Right.
sure it's the same for you. I'm sure that you can sit and say, these are the common things that people do that are going to lead to burnout in their
Yeah.
launching.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
I think like to kind of piggyback off of what you just said, messaging is a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like if you are not speaking about and in a way that your target audience will resonate with, and not just resonate with, but in a way that will actually lead them through a buying decision, right?
Yeah.
Lead them from being, oh, this is a problem I have, but I don't really want to deal with it right now, to, oh, this is actually important for me to deal with right now, to, oh, I can actually choose to deal with this today and feel empowered, not from like fear of how it will go bad and how my life will be destroyed or my business will fall apart, but actually feel like make an empowered decision. Messaging is a huge part of this, and that's something that it's a really easy mistake to make, actually, no matter how far ahead of the game you are.
Yeah.
No matter where you are in your business, that's a very easy mistake to make, because you just assume that you know your people, you know what you need to say. And this is where data comes in. And that's another mistake that I see, is people following the feelings, not the data.
Yeah.
You're in business, friends.
Mm-hmm.
Numbers mean something.
Yes, they do.
Follow the numbers. Don't follow your feelings all the time. Okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes you might feel like a failure. What are the numbers saying?
Yeah.
Sometimes you might feel like this launch didn't go well, or this week didn't go well. What are the numbers telling you?
Mm-hmm.
If the numbers are saying that it actually didn't go well, right? The numbers are also telling you why. So it's really, really important to go back to the data and pay attention to what are the numbers telling me, and have the data inform your decisions about messaging and about, in general, all the directions that you choose to take in your business. Those are two really common mistakes I see. And I think, just for a kicker, one more is money.
Mm-hmm.
And I know, like, I don't mean to take this into like a really fluffy, nebulous place, but the way you think about money and the way you relate to money matters.
Yes.
You are in business, you deal with money every single day.
Yeah.
And so the way you relate to it will move you forward, or keep you exactly where you are, or push you all the way back to even way before you began. Okay.
Yeah.
And so, like, one of the things that I always tend to tell people, or even ask on my applications, is, have you done any money mindset work in the past few weeks or few months? Like, have you processed any money ish that comes up? Because trust me, even if you process it now, a month later, you check yourself and you're like, oh, there's some new blocks here.
Yeah.
There's some new stuff that have come up. And so being very aware of what's going on in your mind and in your heart in relation to money is really, really huge, because that can really, I'm talking from experience, my own and client experiences, it can lead you to some very ugly places in your business. Jana and I were talking about this earlier too, and we were saying, like, we walk into business all bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and it ain't easy. It's not easy. We walk in naively, and then we realize the learning curve is steep.
Yeah.
And one of those learning curves is learning how to deal with and respond to and relate to money.
Yeah.
So, one prime example is, if you don't have the amount of money you want right now and you go into a launch, you might be pitching people with a really desperate kind of energy, a really like pushy, persuasive kind of energy. And that might not serve you and serve the people that you're trying to reach at all. They'll respond to that. They'll be like, ooh, that doesn't feel good. No. Mm-hmm. And you might even turn off people who were really resonating with you before. So those are 3 mistakes that I see very, very often, that it's actually not exclusive to new entrepreneurs. Everybody makes those mistakes. And so just a few things to be conscious of, for sure.
Yeah. I was going to ask you about, to talk more about that. The last point you were talking about that feeling of like desperate selling, right? When things are not going right and you start having that, well, then maybe it's not the right person, but at this point I need to get any person in the door.
Right.
Or when things going really wrong in a launch, and everybody has had a failed launch at some point with, yep, right here, hand up here too. It's right up in the air. We've all had it happen. This last launch for me started off terribly. It was, I was like, I'm not even going to get one sale. And I had to change my entire way of doing it. I was like, this is not going to work this way. That's not going to, and I cleared my calendar and I started doing old school discovery calls. Like I went back to old school sales calls. I was like, let's talk and let's see if this is the right fit. And let me explain more. Cause I am really having to be like, I can't just get on here and be like, doors are open, get in and buy. Cause people were like, man, I don't know if this is right for me.
Right.
And I didn't want to be like, buy. I wanted to know as well, like, are you the right fit? And can I really help you?
Right.
So, but that took a lot of soul searching to get to that, like a lot of like panic and anxiety to be able to be like, listen, I'm going to do exactly what Chelsea said, because I went back and was watching Chelsea's videos. It's a true story. And I was like, she's going to tell me just to dial back and adjust my goals and just go with what's going to feel better. And so, and that's what I did.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and that's what you would say then to anybody who's like kind of in one of those moments when things are tail spinning, and like what would you say to them at that point?
Yeah. Stop.
Yeah.
Stop for at least half a day. Just like step away, disconnect from the launch, like just leave for a minute, because you've built up this like overflowing vat of like oozing, bubbling panic and anxiety. Like picture that in your brain, right? You're all the way up to here with like, like really weird noises.
Yeah. You smell funny. Yes.
It smells fun, right?
Yeah.
It's like this really thick witch's brew of panic and anxiety and fear and doubt and all of these things. And that's not going to help. Like any action you take at that point is not going to help you. It would be like tossing more stuff into it. It's just going to get bigger and nastier. It's not going to serve you. It's not going to serve your people either. And the actions that you take at this point, even if they lead to profit, they're probably not going to lead to a profit that you enjoy or can sustain. So my first thing would be step away from it for at least half a day. Reconnect with something that actually fills you up, makes you feel good. Because what has happened too is your tank that keeps you going has been completely depleted. And now you're filling it with like bad gas, so to speak. Like you don't have gas that you can actually run on. So stepping away and refilling yourself with whatever makes you feel good will actually help you to be able to come back and assess this objectively, right? So step away, go do something you enjoy that fills you up, and then come back to this. And I like to talk about adjusting your actions or adjusting your energy. So either and usually they go hand in hand. So like going off and doing that thing that fills you up is adjusting your energy. It's adjusting your capacity and giving you space to actually come back to this and carry it in a way that will make sense and be sustainable. So you've shifted your energy. Now come back and shift your actions, your goals, and your expectations. Because the way things are running right now, you can't sustain that. That doesn't make any sense for you to sustain, right? So what will actually feel good for you and for your people? What will make the most sense? What's the data saying, right? What is the data telling you that they need more of? Because it's probably telling you something about what they haven't seen yet from you. Is the data telling you that, oh, they probably need a sneak peek of something? Is the data telling you, like Jan was saying, that, they probably need more like high touch sales situations where they can ask questions and get a better feel for whether this would be a good fit for them, right? What's the information saying? Then you can make a decision about how you move forward and how your goals might change too, because you might decide, okay, it's not going to feel good for me to keep pushing towards this, like, I don't know, 50K mark, 10K mark, 5K mark, whatever that is for you. It's not going to feel good for me to keep trying to get there, because capacity wise, it's obvious that from the data, my audience can't get me there. So let's think about a different kind of goal and let's move toward that instead, right? So again, all of this is really subjective, but the point is coming back and being able to look at it objectively and adjust based on what the information is saying, based on what the data is telling you. And, this is why Jan and I are actually here. We're a part of our work is helping you to interpret the data that you're seeing and helping you make those decisions around what's working, what's not working, what might be the best next step. So if you're having trouble interpreting what the data is saying, I would reach out to either of us. We can help. That's what we're here for.
That's what we do.
That kind of sequence though, of like just stepping away, refilling yourself, then coming back and looking at the data, then making decisions about how you move forward. That's kind of how I advise everybody. Like even my clients, when we're in a situation where the launch isn't doing what we expect, and believe you me, launches do that. Nobody can guarantee success for you. Okay. Not even me. I shoot for certain goals, and I'm very, very meticulous at looking at your data so that I know if we can even meet them. Right? But I can't guarantee that. So launches will be really finicky, crazy children sometimes. And you just have to learn that, okay, I gotta get what I need to get to wrangle this child, and not wrangle them in a way that's like, but more like sitting calmly, addressing them calmly, and once you're calm, the launch calms down, if you know what I mean. Like if you think about this like a relationship between a parent and a child, a parent can't go out gunslinging because the child kind of like freaks out. But if the parent's calm, the child will calm down. Same kind of analogy and same way of working. So
yeah, that's a really good analogy. And I know definitely, because most of my audience are moms. And so I think that we will all understand.
Y'all would get it. Yeah.
Exactly.
I'm not a mom.
Yeah.
But I know this from like watching moms.
Yeah.
So.
I know. So as my audience are primarily new entrepreneurs. And so most of them are like either 0 to 3 years kind of in the making at this point. And some are still in the idea phase. Some are in the nurturing, validating phase. Some are in the full on building, and many of them are launched and scaling at this point. So I take work with I'm going to bring you to an idea and all the way get you up out of the door and then fly little bird. That's kind of where you go.
Yeah.
So one of the things, and a big piece about the change that happened on the podcast, I know I was talking to you offline about this as well, and why we've moved from it being the podcast now being called the Impactful Life Podcast, is really having a chance for other women to show up and represent and tell the truth about their own experience as an entrepreneur, but provide that inspiration to the ones who are coming up behind us. Because we don't, and real inspiration, not like, here's my Stripe account, you can do this too, or here you can be walking a beach in France, after 6 months in business, but real inspiration. So as an entrepreneur and was somebody who is growing your own business now, and what piece of advice could you give to the people listening right now that would help them get through those hard days? Those those days, the days where you're like, I'm going back to the 9 to 5. What did I do? Why did I do this?
Right. This was probably not the best idea. Did I think this through? So this is actually, I'm going to give you a piece of advice, or rather 2 pieces of advice that I'm actually currently learning and putting into practice and applying to my life. The hard days are not going to be all your days. Just because you have one hard day doesn't mean that all your days will be hard. Just because you have one hard moment doesn't mean that all your moments will be hard. And you actually get to decide that. because you can have a hard first hour of the morning and then have an exceptional rest of your day. It really, it's funny how entrepreneurship can teach us so many things about ourselves. Mm-hmm. And one thing that I'm learning is to let my emotions be informative, but not drivers. Like, you can tell me how I'm doing right now. You can inform me about a problem, but you don't have to take over my whole day. You don't have to be the one driving the car, because you will literally drive me off a cliff if I put you in the driver's seat. So please, thank you for the information. Now, can I get back to my feet? Can I get around the wheel? Can I take charge of this? So really learning to process through the emotions that come up in those hard times and reframe your perspective, so that a hard moment doesn't become a hard day, doesn't become a hard week, doesn't become a hard month, doesn't become a hard year. Like, that is fully within your control. You get to decide that. And so that's a huge thing that I'm learning right now, is that your hard moments won't be all your moments. Your hard days won't be all your days if you choose to make it that way. Another piece of advice I would say is kind of coming out of the same idea is look at entrepreneurship as an opportunity to grow yourself, because there are so many lessons available to us if we will take them, right? There's so much here for you to learn from and grow from, not just like tactically of, how to be a leader, how to manage a team, how to market, how to shift your messaging, how to read data. Like, those are all very tactical things, right? But intrinsically and internally, how do I motivate myself? Yeah. How do I work best? How do I set up a schedule that allows me to be at my best? How do I eat that allows me to function at my best? How do I relate to people in a way that respects them and respects myself? How do I draw boundaries? These are all lessons you can learn from entrepreneurship if you will take them, if you will grab onto the lesson. So look at the hard moments and this is what, I mean, the buzz idea, the buzz concept of this is having a growth mindset, but really that's what it is looking at the hard moments. And I mean, I don't personally ask myself the question, how can I grow? Because I feel like if I'm frustrated, that's just annoying. I'm like, how can I grow? Really? Don't even ask me that question. Shut up, Chelsea. Like, I'm yelling at myself if I ask myself that question, right? Yeah. But I ask myself a series of questions that actually does help me grow. So if I'm feeling frustrated, sometimes I actually don't even know why. I'm just triggered, right? Something just happens and I'm just like done with everybody, everything, ready to close the laptop and shut down my whole business. And in those moments, I stop and I say, okay, hold on. What's the real problem? Where is this actually coming from? Is this coming from this situation? Or is this coming from something that like years ago happened to you all the way back when, and you learned a particular kind of response, and this is what's coming up in this moment? So there's also low-key, there's also even an opportunity and multiple opportunities to parent yourself and reparent yourself and heal your trauma. Like, listen, if you will take it, owning a business carries so many lessons for you if you will grab onto them and learn them. Yeah. And so that's something that I'm learning as well. It's like hard moments teach me things and I don't have to be afraid of them if I will actually like lean into asking myself the questions. And that's all it is. It's like asking myself questions. It doesn't have to be, pushing through it or, just doing what I got to do. Yeah. Like, I'm not that kind of person who, as I said this at the beginning, I'll never be the kind of person who will just tell you, do what you got to do. Like, that's not me. And I don't relate that way to myself either. Yeah. So I literally just ask myself questions, and it usually gets me to a place where I can release what's happening and I can grow from it. And it's crazy that having a business helps you do that, So that would be my 2 cents on that is those 2 pieces of advice.
Yeah, well, I think that was more than 2 cents. I think that was like $200. So that was good advice. So really good advice. Chelsea, I am so thrilled that you joined me. I honestly this is, as always, I love talking to you. I feel like you have a way of thinking about business that more people need to hear and more people need to be taking on, especially in this space that, let's kind of shift some of the thinking and break down a lot of these stereotypes that, and myths that people are putting out there of that can, and having more honest conversations about, take care of yourself while you're taking care of your business. It's important to have. So if people want to follow up with you, where can they find you? Drop all your stuff.
So I'm on Instagram and Facebook at the Launch Copy Coach. You can find me in either place. And I'm usually on Instagram more than I am on Facebook. So if you want to shoot me a DM there, I am always up for DMs, always up to respond in the comments. I also have a podcast, Launching and Learning with Chelsea Wallace. So you can listen to that on anywhere that podcasts are. It's out there. And yeah, those are the main two places that you can catch me. I tend to be doing something different all the time. So I'm not gonna push programs, but if you do follow me, you'll see exactly what I'm promoting at a particular time. So you'll be able to tap into that as well.
Yeah, definitely. And we will link everything in the show notes too, so people can get there. But I will say, if you follow Chelsea on Instagram, you have to do that. I'm going to encourage everyone listening to, because her lives are unbelievable. You give gold on your lives. And then when they're all over the replay, and I spend many a night sitting there going, just going to watch this for half an hour and get my stuff figured out for next week. It really is lovely. So thank you for doing that.
Of course. I had somebody who said to me that my lives are like webinars. I'm like,
they are. That's true. They are. I've gone into paid stuff where I'm like, oh my God, stop. And I get onto you and I'm like, notes. Perfect.
I'm glad. So yeah, there are a bunch there. If you do want to follow me on Instagram and check those out, they're super helpful. The podcast is also really helpful as well. Yeah. For anybody just starting out. My lives and my podcast are really, really great resources. So I'd highly encourage you to check those out.
Perfect. Thank you again so much for joining me. This was a fantastic conversation.
Thank you for having me, Janet. Thanks for listening, everybody.
Just going to stop. Thank you so much, Chelsea, for joining me for that conversation. And I truly hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. I think that there was so much to learn out of there, and really understanding how to set boundaries and limitations, but more importantly, knowing that this is your business. You have the right to run it how you want to run it, not how anyone else is telling you to do it. Yes, you have to look at the numbers and the metrics and the data, and you have to have all that stuff 100%. And I'm going to tell you, you need to have the acumen. But when it comes down to the heart behind your business and the decisions you're making on the day-to-day aspects of things, that's yours, period. Big period. Nobody else can tell you but you how it is that you define success. And if it's going to be $100,000 a year, then you go for that year. But if it's going to be I just want $500 months, that's great. As long as it's what you want and not what anyone else is telling you have to do, or what Instagram is telling you have to do in order to be successful. So only thing you should be watching on Instagram are my reels. I'm joking. Not really. So this was a really great episode. Again, Chelsea, I'm so glad you joined me. I appreciate you so very, very much. And I always learn something from you. If you want to learn more about Chelsea, check out the show notes. Everything's linked there so you can find her. Make sure you follow her on Instagram for sure. Her lives are awesome. They're fantastic. Just an absolute wealth of knowledge. And like she said too, they're like mini master classes. They're that rich. So make sure you check it out. And I'll be back again next week, and we'll be talking about some more things about how to create a life of impact and a business of impact so that you can do the things that make your heart happy and set your soul on fire. I'll see you then.